All right. Hello and welcome to this episode. My name is Matt Cotty, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds. And on today's episode, I want to talk about mental health awareness. And so this month, October, is going to be for OCD Awareness Week. I believe it's on the October 10th. And we're going to be doing special stuff that week. So it's okay. Stay tuned for that. But really, I wanted to start the conversation off this week, prior to it, talking about mental health awareness as a whole, right? So when we talk about mental health awareness, I think there's different avenues we can go with that, and I want to talk about the one that I actually feel is the most important, which is often the one that I think is least talked about. So when we talk about mental health awareness, we can talk about, making people aware of what we're dealing with, right? We can also talk about just mental health awareness as a societal whole, right? From employers to employees to friends to loved ones, right? Being aware of other people's mental health. So, and I think those are the avenues that a lot of people talk about, is the idea of making people aware of what you're dealing with and being open about your issues, and then also just being aware of what other people might be dealing with. But one of the things that I think is really important for mental health awareness is being self-aware. And I think this is the least thing that, or, essentially with all the avenues, I think this is the least area, or the last area, that a lot of us want to really look into when it comes to mental health awareness, because it's a lot more pretty and a lot more fun to talk about other people, right? To look out there, because when we have to look inward, then we have to confront stuff, right? And that's the last thing that most of us really want to do. And a good place to start when it comes to mental health awareness is starting with our behaviors, because our behaviors are a reflection of our ability to try to navigate our internal experience for the most part, right? Not all of our behaviors, but specifically our behaviors that are unhealthy, our addictive behaviors we engage in that we would never really recommend to anybody else. It's such a great place to start. And I just want to talk about becoming aware of that this week, and just looking inward as opposed to looking outward, or looking how things should be, or that you think, services should be provided for this group of people. Okay, all that may be true and may be great, but let's start where we are first. Because what I think a lot of people do who wrestle with mental health, and I can speak into this personally, is that when we wrestle with mental health, we know we're wrestling with something, right? We know we're struggling. And what we do is we try to focus on the exterior, or focus on something we want to change, or focus on a cause, or, or something outside of us, because it's a distraction from looking within. And I know this message may not be received by everyone with open arms, because, yeah, it's kind of hard to hear sometimes, right? But the way that the best mental health awareness we can have is our own. Because once you begin to work on yourself and you start to heal parts of yourself, whether it's anxiety or depression, whether it's, behaviors like compulsive eating, even just having to be distracted all the time. I mean, just look at how much you look at your phone. Look at how addicted we are to screens, right? Not even what we're consuming. Let's not even go there, but just the idea of how much I have to, like, if you're sitting by yourself at home and you have to just constantly be checking your phone, like, why is that? Chances are that was driven from an internal discomfort. I need to resolve, right? A lot of our behaviors are an attempt to resolve what's going on emotionally, or then an energetic experience within. And if you're engaging in behaviors that you would never suggest other people to engage in, then the question would be, why are you engaging in that? And that is where we start. That's where awareness starts. I think about a lot of what's happening, as I'm watching what's going on in the world, and, just in general with the vaccine and with COVID, and wherever you stand on that is okay, because, you're free to have your own stance and your own ideologies and your own views. But one of the things that's so interesting to me is how concerned other people are with other people, more so than themselves, right? Like the primary objective of a lot of people out there is to control someone else and to educate someone else on why they should behave the way that they want them to behave. What one way or another, right? It's either like, hey, get the vaccine, or hey, make your own choices, like whatever. But I think that there's an underlying issue there of, well, like, why are you so focused on other people in the first place? Like, what are you doing to keep yourself safe? And start there, right? What are you doing for yourself? And then look into all the other areas of your life too, right? If you eat fast food 5 times a week, right? Would you ever suggest that to a friend? For most of us, probably not. But a lot of us will do something that we would never suggest someone else. Do you drink more alcohol than you should be drinking? Okay. Why? Are you looking at a phone, from when you wake up till midnight at night? Are you just constantly online checking other people's stuff? Would you suggest that to anybody? And if the answer is no on any of those, that's the place to start. That's where the awareness needs to evolve into, because most of us just do not want to look at ourselves. It is the last thing that most of us want to do. Most of us don't want to look at our relationships and say, hey, like, how could I be doing better in my relationship? We want to say, hey, how can my spouse be doing better? Hey, how can my parents or my siblings or my boss how could everyone else outside of me do better for me? And if you think about that, that's a very egocentric mentality to bring into the world. How can the world change to accommodate me? Or no, like that's the last thing we should be looking at, right? Well, one, because we don't have control over the world, right? We don't have control over other people. And as opposed to trying to gain control over other people, it's how can I best, what can I do best for myself and my health, my relationships, right? How can I change myself to be the best version of myself? And oftentimes that means confronting things that I don't like about myself, or the things that I engage in that I don't like, that I necessarily wouldn't recommend to other people. This is where mental health awareness starts. You got to become aware of within first before you could ever really be aware of what's a good idea, outside of you. And that's the constant message at Restored Minds is, look, if we want a better world, it starts with you as an individual. Not with you as an individual spreading your ideas about what other people should do. No, just you as an individual working and developing yourself. And if you think you don't have work to do on yourself, you are lying to yourself. You are mistaken. Everyone has work to do. Everyone can evolve. Everyone can grow, can become more accepting, more in tune with themselves, can evolve to higher states than where they are. If you think you've reached the pinnacle, my goodness, you are mistaken. And in fact, the more you think that, the more you need to actually start looking within yourself. Because if I'm really transparent, when I just take one glance at my life, there's countless things that I could work on. Yes, mentally, sure. Physically, emotionally, with my, just with my marriage, with my relationship with my daughter, with my parents. And it's like, I mean, like, just for me, how can I change myself in that context? What can I work on with myself in that context? And imagine if we did that. Like, imagine if our awareness started there, right? And then, yeah, sure, there is an aspect of promoting awareness to mental health and opening up larger discussions. Sure, there is an aspect of getting resources to people in need. Absolutely. But oftentimes what I think happens is so many people get so focused on that being what mental health awareness is that they never look at themselves, right? And here's the problem with not looking at ourselves and not becoming aware of ourselves, is that we then perpetuate things unknowingly and cause damage unknowingly to our relationships, passing down to things to our children. It impacts our family circles, all of that, right? Because, your ability to be with and navigate your emotional experiences is a huge part of mental health. I mean, and there's so many layers to mental health, I mean, we're not going to go into all of them, but really what I wanted to talk about this week, and I know it's probably the avenue again that most people aren't going to talk about when it comes to mental health awareness is just being aware of what you're really dealing with. And a great place to find, or to start looking is in watching the behaviors you engage in that you necessarily wouldn't recommend to other people. Because then obviously the question would be, well, why do you engage in those behaviors if you don't recommend them to other people? And then figure out within yourself what drives you to do that. Can you just sit with yourself for an hour? Is that something that you actually can do? If not, why not? What is the discomfort you're experiencing? Where does that come from? Are there thoughts you're having? Are there, do you get anxious in large groups? I mean, like instead of just, I feel this and I do something to neutralize it, start with yourself. That is the pinnacle place. If we all started there and really got aware of what we were experiencing, and instead of, and again, this isn't about victimizing yourself and feeling bad about yourself. It's just being aware of what you're dealing with, right? Just literally starting with awareness. And once we really become more aware of ourselves, then we can start to work on ourselves. That's the great news, is like, it's not that you're stuck with this stuff, and there's plenty of tools and resources and all that. And at Restored Minds, that's what we provide to people, are, tools to work on themselves. What we don't provide are tools to help change other people so that you feel okay, because they meet your definition of what they should meet. It's like, no, that's not what true mental health awareness is. It's not trying to change the outside world as much as it is becoming aware of the internal and learning to work with that. And the more you can heal internally, what happens is then you bring your best version of yourself into your relationships, into your communities, into your job, into the people you work with. And then they start to ask questions like, hey, like, so what do you do? Like, because you're going to be a light amongst darkness. I mean, so many people wrestle with mental health issues, and instead of working on themselves, right, we distract, right? We suppress, we block, we replace. And then oftentimes we're forced into these encounters with them, and they seem unmanageable, and something we can't navigate. But when we can really become aware individually, and I mean just you, right? Whoever's listening to this, whoever's watching this, just you, if you can really start there, that is a much better building block for every kind of change you can imagine in this world. And so the call this week, or just like this, the next step is just to start with yourself. Noticing your emotional experiences, noticing the behaviors you engage in. And especially if they're behaviors you wouldn't recommend to other people, why do I engage in those? Just getting curious with yourself. And of course, we can talk about tools down the road, but just starting there and learning to start there. And it's such a great place, because the great news is about working on yourself is that you can start to change instead of trying to make some other people change, or anything outside of you, whether it's a bill or whether it's, a certain act by a certain group. None of that matters anymore once you really start to look at yourself as the person to work on, and where the work needs to be done. Because once you really start to look at yourself, you're going to realize in most cases that there's so much to do there that me focusing outside of myself doesn't really make sense. And the more and more we all start to do that collectively, the better our relationships are going to be, the better our communities are going to be, the better our society is going to be, even our world. And that's why with mental health awareness, especially with OCD, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff this month. And one of the things we are going to be doing is a workshop on taboo thoughts at the end of the month on October 27th. And so definitely keep an eye out for that, because we are going to be doing a live workshop with Restored Minds. And I have a special guest, Christina Orlovo, who's a licensed marriage family therapist, and we're going to be doing a joint workshop. But so just stay in tune for that, because we're going to be sending out more announcements on that during OCD Awareness Week. But this week, let's go ahead and start with just us, and do your best to just become aware of within, and kind of see where that takes you, see where that goes. Just from a very curious standpoint, not judgmental, not bad, not good, just noticing yourself. And so when we talk about mental health awareness, I think one of the best places we can start is our own mental health awareness. And because once we start to work from that place, we can achieve a much greater change than if we focus on any other avenue. So thank you so much for being with me during this episode. For those of you that are looking for additional support at restoredminds.com, we have resources for you, whether it's our free trainings to our premium programs like Taking Back Control, as well as our coaching programs where we offer group and individual. And so if you're interested in that, there's some links right down in the notes where you can check that out. And we want to help you on this journey, of course. And also, like I said, we will be doing a live seminar or a live workshop later this month on October 27th for Taboo Thoughts. And so I'm really excited about that. It's going to be really powerful. So make sure to, subscribe, like, and to just stay in. And if you're not a part of our list, make sure to join that as well by the links below, just so you're notified. And when we put out the sign up date. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great week, and I wish you guys the absolute best. And I look forward to seeing you next week as we start with OCD Awareness Week and all the exciting things we're going to do. Take care.